Welcome to another edition of One Voice at a Time. I'm Dottie Grover, producer and host of the show, and it's a show that we have on regularly for anyone who has something to share, a point of view. If they want to share something that they're interested in, something they enjoy, there are no limits to who can come on the show and what the topic can be. So I hope you'll check the end of the show for contact information and get back to me with either a desire to come on and be a guest or just to give us some suggestions and or questions. I started the show because I saw that people were going to public meetings and they were not being given a chance to actually finish their thoughts. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. Some people are uncomfortable with public speaking. That's a very common one. So this is set up to be friendly. We pretend we're sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, and we're just going to talk. And today, and the second Friday of each month, we will be taping a show with Deb Hall, the owner, publisher of the Londonderry Times. And I would like to welcome you, Deb. Thanks for being on the show. I think this is really going to be fun. And just so you know, we're taping on March 13th.
Yep.
So,
and I want to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for thinking of me, because I try to keep everything, all my thoughts and feelings go in my editorials. So people kind of think they know me, but they really don't know the whole story.
That's only one facet, yeah.
I try to be very neutral in my editorials, and I try not to offend anyone or go over the edge too far. Yeah. So hopefully people will get to have a better understanding of where those thoughts are coming from.
I think that's a great idea.
No, it wasn't my idea, it was your idea.
What a great idea.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's perfectly okay. I know one of the things that I had talked on one of our other shows, Transparency in Government, was the workforce housing. And I happened to tune in to a meeting on, I think it was on Channel 22 that night, and I saw you talking about the workforce housing, and I was really floored at how close our ideas were. Can you explain a little bit about how you perceive this process?
Sure. I know that some of it has to do with the government, bigger government than town government.
Right.
And
so like state requirements for how we do things.
Right. And a word to our legislators, they really need to stop that. You need to stop trying to social engineer where people live, where they work. I mean, it should be you afford what you afford, you live where you like, you work where you want. I mean, America is based on freedom of choice, and that's what we choose to do. I would have loved to have lived at Rye Beach. Could I afford to live at Rye Beach? No, but I lived where I could.
I think I did want that house on the boulevard. That's pretty cool.
But you know, you do what you can. You can't accommodate everyone. You just can't. It doesn't mean that you don't like them. It just it is what it is. And I hate that phrase, but I'm going to say it, but because that's what it really is.
Yeah.
So, in an effort to help developers and landowners make the most of their money, which is really not the state or town's job in my mind, but oh yeah, they donate a lot to campaigns. So that set aside, they put these rules in, and we've been talking about it in the paper since easily 2009. And if we're not careful and take lessons from other towns that did it, and no offense to Derry, but they overdid it. I mean, and it really hurts their town. Derry at one time was a very quaint town, just like Londonderry. And then they overbuilt with these high-density apartments, and they now have all kinds of financial issues, and their schools, you know, having to pay for those schools are expensive. And that caused so we tried at the paper to educate people the best we could. Because it isn't necessarily about your backyard. It affects everyone in the town. Even if you live next to the Musquash, the apartment building going in on Perkins or Stonehenge or Wood, all affects them as well as the residents next door to it. And
it especially affects us on providing services.
Well, services and traffic and reselling of your property. The taxes will be at a point to cover those services that no matter where you are, you're never going to make your money back. I mean, the assessed value will be the same, but when you go to sell, you know, somebody, you know, coming to New Hampshire is coming for the New Hampshire way of life, the quality of life, that nice blend of city, rural,
trees on the road,
big enough backyards that you're not the
backyard
entertainment.
for cookouts,
And I think that people have to stop thinking about agendas and other people's profits, but the greater good. Greater good for this community,
now,
any other community.
There is a formula in place, if I understand correctly. But are we following the formula? I mean, as far as like what the density can be in a...
Well, we've given a few waivers because the developers claim that they can't make enough money on the project, then
now
pick a different project. I mean,
that concerns me, because if you don't have a big enough margin of error to make a profit, how committed are they going to be to finishing that project?
Well, that's, you know, they'll say float a bond, but the bonds don't cover bankruptcy. And once that, you know, ginormous building is there, it's not like a house that's half built. You're talking ginormous buildings. It's very hard to rip that out and try again. It's very expensive, and it's an eyesore. It becomes blighted. I'm hoping, and I talked to John Vogel the other night in regards to doing what
Can
Derry...
you give his title so people know what you're talking about? No, that's okay.
John Vogel is the town assistant planner, GIS, does a lot of work with the planning department, zoning boards, and to do the maps. And I spoke with him because I just was working with the Derry Downtown, and the Derry Downtown finally has put in a blight ordinance, and it goes throughout the town. And this is basically to help the downtown.
And how does that work?
Well, when you have absentee landlords and the building starts falling into disarray and they don't want to fix it because they can't financially do what it takes to, right, so they leave it and they just figure, oh, it's a loss, we'll go from there. What this does is, so if this building is abandoned and they have 10 windows and they're boarded up, for each window it's $10 a day, for the door it's $50 a day, and more and more and more, till eventually the town can either take possession or the landlord steps up and fixes it.
So that's like a second stage. If I remember correctly, when a developer comes in, don't they have to have some sort of a, I'm not sure what you should call it, some sort of a fund?
An escrow account.
An escrow account that guarantees the town that that project will be finished. But once it's finished, then what do you do?
Exactly.
And
so that's
I think
the second part of that.
Yeah.
But even in the escrow account, if they go bankrupt and time had passed, those funds may not be enough funds to finish that project. And the town is stuck for it. It becomes a liability risk, financial burden. So there are things, but the workforce housing, I think that they blend the lines and the terminology. It's never really been clearly defined. And the paper did a story, and we interviewed teachers, firefighters, police, young people, and they're looking, and even older people, they would like smaller homes with less land to take care of that are more affordable, not necessarily the high density apartment. To me, high density apartments are a way of life. It's a city thing, Portsmouth thing.
And I think the price locks out so many people, because if I remember correctly, they were talking about a rent of $1,400 a month.
Right.
I mean, that's somebody's Social Security check plus some in
Correct.
a lot of cases.
You're absolutely
so they're
correct.
not going to be able to.
And that price point is set by HUD. I can't remember the...
Is it set community by community, or?
They broke out things, and if you were to look where Londonderry is clumped, it's Londonderry, Candia, Deerfield, Nottingham. It's like a...
kind of like a district that they create.
Right,
that has
but if you look at it, we're the biggest city or town of all of them, and we have sewer and water. So to build the workforce housing in Wyndham, which is clumped with another group, their level of apartments is $1,200.
I see.
Derry is $1,100. Bedford, for example, it's only $1,020.
Really?
So it doesn't go by the wealth of the community. It goes by the density, because Bedford's clumped in with Manchester. It looks like it has easy access to. So that's why our state officials really need to step in and have them reevaluate
the way they're doing
people
things.
from DC looked at this, you know, and they have no idea what they're clomping. And so that's why the developers want here, because they can get the most amount of rent, profitability.
Best bang for the buck.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily caring about the character, you know, of the community and how it will affect the community.
I was hoping that it would be more like an entry level, if you have a job nearby and you're at the entry level in that job and you want to stay close because you grew up here and you love Londonderry, you'd be able to afford that, but not at $1,400. They can't.
No. And that's what we were saying. And thank God the new zoning that they're talking about, which is just at the last planning board, they finally decided to take action, even though people were speaking out and speaking up. They are in the process of it, and there's workshops coming up. Please look and come and say whatever you feel. I'm very excited. They're going back to the old way, where I actually grew up, where you had a house and allowing people to have 2 and 3 families in that house, or a house in the back.
A house with an in-law apartment.
Right, because what's happening is that, you know, I've had to do it. I've had to take care of parents and aunts and, you know, and it's becoming that our generation is having to take care of our seniors, and then our kids are coming back. And you know, the houses are not built for that, and nor they allow it. So being able to have that type of apartments again is great, because they can go back to a single family or be divided to it allows it to move with the ebb flow.
I heard of this really interesting project. I believe they were doing it in Canada, is what's sticking in my head. I could be wrong on that, where they were building those tiny houses. That are, you know, like 1,200, not even 1,200, like 900, 600 square feet, building them in the backyard for mom to come home and live there versus going into a nursing home. And the government discovered that it actually was saving the money to do that.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. And the town makes money as well, because they can tax that structure. And that's one of the things that this zoning code would allow for. And the thing about those are, again, if down the road it changes, it doesn't change the look, the aesthetic feel of country living. It could be a shed. You know, they really sometimes don't think things out fully.
Well, that's why you need a lot of people to discuss it, because then you get all of those ideas from everybody.
And the boards and committees need to know what the people are thinking. And it doesn't matter how crazy, you know, your idea is. If you're talking about houses in the ground, which is one of the big things in the cities now, is going underground. And they're
I wish all our utilities were under.
Well, they're energy efficient. They're more effective.
Excuse me, somebody wants to be on camera for a minute.
Well, stealing my spotlight here. But they're trying to do that, to make better use of the grounds and space that they're limited to. And anyway, this is airing on the 13th. On March 18th, at the town hall at 7 o'clock is a zoning board. And even if you don't speak, even if you just show up, and if you can't show up and you do have something to say, send a letter to these boards and say you want it read into the minutes. They need to hear from the public, because one of the things the developers will say is that, well, the community wants this. Well, no, they don't. And I said it at the meeting. Where are these people saying, yes, we want high-density apartments that are very expensive? They're not there. That's not what they want. But they're trying to do that. And so people really, really, really need to come and let their voices be heard.
And I would like to say that when they do come, I would strongly urge who's ever running that meeting to be very in tune with the people that are speaking. If you have a thought, let you finish that entire thought so it's clear. If you're being redundant, fine, we already covered that. But I just would like them to make it a very relaxed atmosphere. Like I said, the reason for this show was so that people could have their full say. And that can happen in a meeting.
Oh, it just happened to me at the zoning board. The developers, you know, and their engineers were allowed to repeat everything from the get-go. But they were holding the public to just speak to the density. And I said, that's not fair. I'm a taxpayer. You're supposed to be supporting me and listening to me and doing what I believe to be true. Not them. And so they did let me speak, but if I didn't stand up to them, because it is intimidating. You're a little lower.
It's very
they're up there on this big, you know, platform, and it takes your breath away. And nobody wants to be have the feeling that they're being made a fool, and that they don't know.
Right.
And it doesn't matter, because eventually they'll get the message, and that's what they ran for office or volunteered for. They're supposed to be listening. So
listen, follow the rules that are in place. When those need to be changed, come back and get some input from the public to change them. How long is this process going to take with the zoning ordinance? Do you know?
I do not. Hopefully it will only take 3, 4, maybe 5 months, but it's a matter of reviewing and a workshop and reviewing and rewriting. They went from like 100.
Since 1963, that document has been in place. It's been amended and amended and amended, and addendum after addendum. It's like, I don't even know how they can figure out what it says now.
Some odd pages. They've edited it down to like 35 pages.
Okay.
That's how much redundancy there was in there.
All right.
And
that alone is a really good start.
It is. It is. And one of the things that they are looking at is a place for these high density apartments. We don't want to exclude that, but a natural place would be up towards the airport in an industrial, commercial area.
Jobs are right down the street.
As a buffer from industrial, commercial, the high density apartment, more rural, more residential. And that's a natural buffer. That's a natural flow. And it wouldn't take much effort to connect with Manchester to have the bus service come down into that area, which would be accommodating. And that's what workforce is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, you know, able to walk and get a bus to go to work in the middle of a neighborhood.
Are they talking like 1 and 2 bedroom apartments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I like it because they say, well, it's going to be high end because we have granite. I'm like, that's the standard now. Oh, it's not high end.
Okay. We're also in New Hampshire.
Right.
Granite's kind of plentiful.
Well, I find it funny, and anything can be taken to twist and push an agenda. And I don't believe that it's not profitable for these guys, even though they say it's razor.
Why would they do it if it's
well, they've got, what, a lawyer, an engineer, an economist. I mean, these people write things to work for the person that's paying them to do that. So that's a lot of money, and they show up at every single meeting. And they can't be doing it for the goodness of their heart.
No, I don't
think so. For the greater good.
Yeah. No.
And so that's workforce housing, 101.
Now, do you know, what would we call housing that was lower in rent? I mean, if that's workforce, what is?
They say it's affordable.
Okay.
But affordable is such a, you know,
it's
somebody who's making $100,000 can afford a $40,000 car. Someone who's making $50,000 needs a $2,000 car.
Well, it's the same thing as what the legislators did with education. Adequate.
They couldn't define it.
What is adequate?
No.
No definition.
Education's a topic, I guess, for another day.
Yeah, it is.
We could sit here for 8 hours and talk about education.
About that. Now, something else we were talking about before the show started. What were we saying there? Do you remember?
Oh, we were talking about the boards and committees.
Yes. Okay.
That is something that's coming up at the town council. So that's this Monday.
Okay.
They're actually looking at the process for which boards and committees operate. And there are some that do keep very good minutes and some that don't. I suggest that instead of having the town employees be the minute takers, it would be more cost effective and efficient so the town employees can do their jobs. To hire somebody like Wyndham does and other towns is they hire a note taker. And the note taker is $100, flat fee. And they come to the meeting, whether it's till 2 in the morning, they stay there.
Okay.
And they have the minutes done.
Sort
They're
of
like a stenographer.
Yeah, sort of like the Access Center covers the government meetings. It's a flat fee for the person who's doing the coverage.
Right. And I think it gets more details because that's what they're doing. That's what they're there for. Instead of taking, you know, the secretary from a department. So if we have a person that's only part-time in planning and they're covering meetings, they're getting compensated and they have less time and they're spending half of their time writing the meetings, it would be, and a town person comes in, a resident says, oh, could you help me with this? They're like, we're way too busy. Well, why are you busy? Because half of your time spent covering and writing minutes. If you take that off the plate, they should have no excuse for not being able to service you.
I've always thought that, and I know they do this with some committees, or they used to anyway, when you go on a committee, you should get a packet. And that packet should include anything that affects what you do on that committee.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 1, 2, 3 sort of thing. I always like to have that, and it would say on there, minutes are mandatory.
Right.
And meetings have to be this, and the makeup of the committee has to be this. Some of the basics, and then what is your mission?
Well, the ethics.
The ethics.
When
too,
we
yes.
put in the ethics code and added to it, one of the stipulations to it was that at the end of every election, when new town councilors, new school board members, new employees would get a overview of the ethics code and sign off on it, and that would be there.
Yeah.
And there is a place on the town website somewhere, it's very difficult to find, that there is a complaint form. If you feel that somebody is doing something unethical, you can go and fill out that form and it will be heard. Personally, I would like to see an ethics committee and that both parties sit and talk it out and maybe be able to come to a better resolve, better processes that way. But at this point, they did not put in an ethics committee because they felt it would be a witch hunt. I am of the mindset.
That argument, yeah.
I am of the mindset, if you have nothing to hide or you're not guilty, who cares? Bring it. You know, I'm an open book.
Yeah.
And so that makes me nervous, and I do question, you know, why they would think it would be a witch hunt, because it's enough people, enough that it should be. But the boards and committees, and this goes back to what we were just saying, they're talking about if you want to volunteer and be on a board and committee, and they want new blood to step up, but yet they don't have any terms for the chairs. And the chairs need to start stepping down. When you have people who have been on chairs of boards and multiple boards, the same person being a chair of one board and another board, to me, it becomes an ethic issue, and it becomes a conflict of interest, and it's not keeping things fresh and fully vetted, and it's not teaching.
Right, and diverse opinions are not getting out there, and you need that. You need that constant new blood, new ideas.
And that's why I always talk about being fully vetted. And that's another thing that's an ethics issue that, for example, I'm going to get off topic. Sorry.
That's okay.
The last town council meeting, the town manager mentioned that we needed a new truck, and they were buying a new truck. And they said the truck was on the fritz. Well, what's on the fritz? What does that mean? I had no idea. How old was the truck? What was wrong with the truck? And I'm not saying anything was done wrong, but because emails had gone back and forth to individual counselors, the public who these people serve did not know what was going on.
Information.
Exactly. And the thing is these things are supposed to be public. I think email has really devastated the transparency of that, because things are being handled behind these doors, and the only people who are privy to see it are the people on that email. So you and I could be emailing Kevin Smith, and he's giving me one answer and you another, but we don't hear it or see it, so we don't know. And there may be something between the two of us talking that's even better than put on the table.
Well, what I was going to say. It doesn't mean necessarily that anything is going bad.
No, I wasn't saying that.
No, I know. And it's not necessarily that things are going bad. It's that they're not going as well as they could.
Exactly. And the people don't know. At the end of the day, they're public servants. We, the people, write the paycheck. We have the credit card that they seem to want to go crazy with. But we are the ones who are in charge. They're our servants. They are there to serve. Public servants to serve us. And I think that's missed. And I think that, you know, they always accolade each other, which makes me crazy when they accolade people for doing what they're paid to do. Very rarely. It takes away the validity of it when someone does go above and beyond.
I understand what you're saying.
But that whole thing needs to be more vetted, more public, and that's what they're talking about now, that whole process for boards and committees. And I think it's a good time now for people to come and voice their opinions about that.
So on the 18th, which is Monday.
No, is that Monday? No, Monday is
not the 13th, not the 18th. The 18th is Wednesday.
The 13th?
Is that right?
It's today. 14th, 15th, 16th is Monday.
Okay.
That's the town council. And then the 18th is the
planning.
The zoning board.
Zoning board, okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Too many numbers to remember.
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
I know people have a lot on their plate, and they're all very busy. But, you know, people get out when it's an issue for the federal and national. And really,
but the little things close to home affect you so much more.
And you can change it.
You
can make it better.
Yeah.
I don't understand. And you're teaching your children to stand up for what you believe in, to stand up and fight for where your home and what's yours, not just sit back and go, oh, I'll just move. Well, where are you going to move? It's all the same.
I miss the old town. I think she's asleep. We might be boring her. I think it's a shame that we don't have the style of government that we were so famous for, to have the town meetings where you have your personal representation. You go there, you talk, you can influence a vote if your argument is good. And my way of thinking is everybody who showed up wanted to be there, they get to vote. You didn't want to come? Well, what am I supposed to do for you? But I liked that, and I started to talk about learning. When we moved to New Hampshire, my family moved to New Hampshire in 1960, we being all of the under voting age kids, occupied the balcony at the town office, the town hall, and watched all the interactions down on the floor as to how these people were voting and how they were coming to decisions. And it was an education.
It is,
sure.
and it's a sad day because...
And we all became active in our governments wherever we lived. Became
and to help our local nonprofits. I mean, it teaches them that, you know, we help each other, and that's what a neighborhood and a community is about, is helping each other. What I see from young mothers is that they want to, but they don't know how to. And
there is an education process that needs to go on. Especially, we've changed, how many times have we changed government in the last...
I've only been for the town meeting, and I'm guilty. I'm guilty. You can yell at me all you want.
No,
I was on that charter commission, and I thought that because people only understood the one-day voting, it was better. And if people show up to the budget meetings and the workshops,
and that's the thing,
and start saying things, they have many, many bites at an apple to change things, as opposed to that one day.
That's true, but there's a lot more. You have to be a lot more passionate about that issue to come out for all of those other meetings.
We don't have to come out for all of them.
Or watch on...
They can watch on TV. They can read it in the paper. We cover it.
And
they can send letters to those boards and say how they feel. And we want this read into the minutes. I can't come. I'm taking care of somebody. Or I'm working. But I want my voice to be heard. Then write that email.
But that is an education process to make sure that everybody understands what they have control over and what they can, when they can speak, how they can speak. They don't know that. They don't understand the power that they actually could have.
Because at the end of the day, the town council and school boards are all politicians. And if they hear that their public is not happy, they're going to do what the public wants because they want to be reelected.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that going on.
There is. On that note, I'd like to go off topic a little bit. It's been mentioned that my paper doesn't run everybody's letters. And I'd like to go on the record for this on here and publicly state.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a process that we put in place because we're limited to space in our publication. We limit the letters to 500 words. We will send them back to you and ask you to edit it down. If you send a letter to us, it will run unless you are verbally, not physically, but verbally attacking someone. And the process for political letters, we stop them 2 weeks before the election because we don't want to affect the election in the sense of somebody may write a letter and it's not have facts or truth in it and the person doesn't have time to respond. And so that is why we do that. But we do not select letters. If you, as a matter of fact, I have seniors that come into my office, that we type it in for them as they sit there and talk, or they handwrite it and we retype it in for them. So that's, I just wanted to say that because there's a misconception that I pick and choose. I don't care if you're for or against something. I just want people to see all the perspectives and make their own decision. If your decision is different than mine, and that's the popular one, I did my best. And if that's what the will of the people is, then that's, you work with it. Life's a negotiation.
It is.
And it's a give and take. But if you don't publicly talk about things and vet things, you can't sway or move things or go, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't see this option.
I love situations that cause people to think.
Yes.
Okay, you don't ever have to agree with me on what I'm saying, but I have discovered that even when I don't agree with someone, we start off in two different corners and we don't agree with each other, but you know, I can see how you got where you are, and that's important too.
And you have your own values and your own principles.
Everybody is,
and we're all the way we are because of experiences and the way we were brought up in our life. And that's fine. And you can still go have coffee. You know, because eventually we're going to agree on something.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but, you know, that little pug sleeping in people's arms are cute. That's, you know, that's a given. But I think that Londonderry has a lot going for it. When I first came here, the thing that made me so passionate and made me want to be a newspaper here, and it wasn't my background, but it made me want to connect to everyone, to create a village mentality, was the fact that people volunteered. When I first came here, I can't tell you the amount of volunteers that would come out. I see that dying off as all the Lions Club and the Rotary Club say the same thing to me. It's the level of and that is part of participation.
And it's not just Londonderry.
No, it's it's a national thing.
I originally I had thought, no, what are we doing? What do we need to do better to get people to come out? No. But then when you talk to people around the country, you find out that it's kind of waning all across the country. And that's the problem too, because that really is a very basic part of our democracy.
And in some towns, it's even worse because they don't have a paper or an access center or a lines of communication to be able to connect. I know that, you know, the caregivers will always say to me, oh, you know, we're having a low volunteer rate and I'll do a story and they'll get their volunteers. And so that, I think, helps, but there still needs to be so much more. There's so much more we could do. We can create our own Mayberry right here if people just came together and came out and made it a family thing. Bring the kids, bring the dogs, bring, you know, the grandmother and the aunts and the uncles, and it could be, that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah, it
would be nice to do that.
So again, on Monday night, come and talk about the process that needs to be fixed. There are a lot of processes in town that need to be fixed, and the process.
Well, I would. Any other topics you want to discuss today, or we pretty much all set on that?
Let's talk about the auditorium.
Okay,
that's a hot topic.
That is a hot topic. Let's talk about that.
A lot of people thought that I was totally against an auditorium, but I am not. I'm going to say it again. I'm not against an auditorium. I was against the process that they were going through.
Okay.
They, you know, in my mind, were putting the horse before the cart, and they say that's the way they always do things. But you and I both know we used to have slaves, and women couldn't vote, and we used to throw garbage into the toxins into the ground. That's the way we did it, and that doesn't make it right. Times change, people change, and sometimes it's not necessarily the right way. I believe it wasn't.
Plus, but that phrase, "but we always," that's from the 4-year-old. You do something for them once, and then the next time they say, "but you always."
Exactly.
And it's not a useful term.
I just think that the committee needs to be from a wide variety of people in the community. You know, we're talking about we need a senior center. We're talking about desperately need a teen center because of the heroin problem and the other issues that are going on with teenagers. And we need this auditorium. So maybe that small little auditorium isn't what we really needed to begin with. Maybe there are other avenues. Maybe we need to have a nonprofit group run it so that it doesn't burden the taxpayer, so that they can go to people like Bosch, who's in our town, Bose, that's in our town, Home Depot, that's in our town, and say, look, can you do the sound system? Can you do this? You know, maybe that's the way to go. I don't know, but it was never put out there. And that's what bothered me. It was the kind of, it's my way or the highway sort of thing, and the fact that it never really was put out there. So I'm hoping.
And I don't think that was the intention.
No, but
at all. But if people perceive that, if they perceive that, then the perception is what you have to deal with.
Right. And so I'm hoping that, and I was active for getting the auditorium years ago before we had the gym, when that was where the auditorium was going to go. And they were going to take the band room and turn that into a gym, which I thought was a good idea. That being said, I'm hoping that a group gets back together and really puts it out there and does the due diligence and does the right thing for the community, where everybody will benefit from it.
Well, and I'd just like to put an offer out there that they are welcome to come on TV anytime they want to talk about it. And you may not think you have anything to talk about yet, but the process and the fact that it's ongoing is important too. So anybody who would like to come on and talk about the topic that's either on the old committee, wants to be on a new committee, I also feel that we've got to go forward with this. We have to have an auditorium, just based on our size and the number of activities that we have just in town. And it can be a self-supporting situation.
The auditorium that they were proposing was definitely too small to be more than used for the school. So that's another issue.
It could even have been too small for some of the school concerts and things like that.
That probably may have been true. And I think that was never really put out there as well. And again, I agree with you. Come, talk, let's get this going. I think it's great. The more people that get involved, the better. And no idea is too crazy.
And the more it's out there, the better chance they have of finding people who are going to be supportive when it comes to the next vote.
You just never know. You never know who's out there who says, you know what, I've got all this money. I'd like to donate it. You just don't know. But you don't know.
That's right.
You don't know until you start putting it out there. I mean, who would have ever thought that Andy Mack would have stepped up for the Historical Society and said, here's a piece of land, and here's, well, you were on the committee, that's why.
No.
But you know what I'm saying.
He's,
you just never know.
Yeah, he's been a benefactor many, many times over, and people don't even realize it.
No.
He's very quiet about it.
But that's my point.
Are you getting down? Okay.
Is people don't know about it, and they need to know about it. They need to know about it. And I changed hats for a second from the paper to, I sit on the board of the Chamber of Commerce for Londonderry and Derry, and we've been doing a few roundtables, and there's one coming up in April, and we had one in February, where we invite the state reps and the senators to come to meet the business owners, to be able to figure out what they can do to help us. So, if, you know, gas tax, you know, people thought it was a good thing to help. In some businesses it helped, and some businesses it hurt. And I think they need to know that. And they need to be able to have a resource. And you need to be able to put a face to a name. So keep an eye out for that. That's a very good thing.
Okay. That sounds great. We'll talk more about that.
There's a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up for today. And I hope that you'll watch this, get to see it before these meetings that come up, because we are taping on the 13th. And go to the meetings, write a letter after you see the meeting, go to the town website. There's definitely the information that's there. If you haven't been on it in a while, the information that's up there is much more complete than it was before, easier to access. So, you know, go there as well. And as I had said when we started the show, you're all welcome to come on. Just give us a call me at home. Information will be at the end of the show, or you can call here at the Access Center to set something up. We'd like to have as many topics going as possible. Not going to be a pro-con kind of situation. You come on, you have an opportunity to voice what you're interested in. And it doesn't make any difference what that is. It can be fun, it can be serious, or anything in between. So I hope that you enjoyed the show today, and I'm really pleased that I can say that we're going to do this once a month, and it'll be out on the air. If you don't catch it when it's airing, they have streaming video now. So you can go online and you can download the video and watch it that way. So it's all at your convenience. The same thing with all of these meetings. If you miss any of these meetings, just turn to channel 22 or channel 30 and you'll be able to catch them. And the LAC website has the information on when those will be playing. And of course, with the Londonderry Times, there's going to be news in there too. So keep up with what's going on around town.
I want to say one more thing.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Also, I'd like to tell anyone that if you have a question, and I know a lot of people come to my office or call me because they feel that I can maybe tell them exactly the steps to take. I welcome that. I welcome you to come to my office, to email me directly. It's dpaul@nutpub.net. Call my office at 537-2760. It's in the paper. Come to the office. It's Tulishfield Road, and we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Really, I want people to get involved.
Yeah.
Whether you like me, don't like me, is not an issue. It's just
she really does have an open door policy over there. She really does. And same thing for us, open door policy. It's for everybody. And there is contact information at the end. We want to hear what you want to hear.
We need to take back our town.
Absolutely. Sounds like a rallying call to me. So thank you for watching, and Deb, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for asking me.
I'm really glad that you were willing to do it. I think there's a lot of information that's going to get out there. You did very well. Thank you very much.